Hello and welcome to the Red Letter Podcast. This is episode 1 of who knows how many, hopefully many, many more to come. My name is Tyler.
And my name is Jordan.
And as you guys all know, 2020 has probably been
The best.
one of the best years we've had in a long time.
It's wow.
So we just wanted to take a second and I wanted to ask you, Jordan, what has been your favorite thing so far about 2020?
Personally, I really enjoyed being stuck in my house for a month. I think that was...
But you're like a super extrovert.
No, that was probably not my favorite. My honest favorite was actually probably this past week. I went and saw a movie in the theaters, and I saw Tenet, and I think that was my favorite so far because one, it felt a little normal, going to the theaters. Also, the movie was confusing enough that I was writing out charts to explain the movie to my wife. And so it gave me something to do when I went home. I had homework. It was something to do this year. So that was fun.
So what you're telling me is that it took month number 9?
Yeah.
September? Yeah.
Yeah.
It took 9 months of the year to get to a favorite moment.
If I had to think pre-corona, my favorite thing was probably my mission trip to Africa, but it just doesn't even feel like it's part of 2020 because that was in February.
It was 2020.1. This
Yeah.
is 2020.2.
Yeah. And for sure, it's like the beginning of the year feels separate from the rest of the year. Like January, February don't feel like it's part of the year. So if I had to think, like, that was really awesome. We did outdoor services at church for a while too. That was a highlight. It was hot, but we didn't do it as long as you guys did because y'all did it all summer.
For 2 months.
Yeah, we did it for 1 month, and so once it got really hot, it stopped.
When you guys did it, you did it June and July, or no? You just did it June.
We just did it
Yeah.
June.
We did it June and July.
July, I can't imagine that would have been.
There was one week that I legitimately thought I was going to pass out because of how hot it was.
Oof.
Cool. Well,
what was your favorite?
My favorite, actually, it is a more recent thing too, and it is because things are open again. But me and my wife really love to go out to eat.
Yeah.
And I'm much more on the introverted side and really dislike large crowds. And so I was realizing that all restaurants are now my favorite thing ever because they're half capacity. And granted, I feel bad for the restaurant because they're not making as much money, and it's hard on them. But as a customer, they're always very quiet and they're always just much less crowded feeling. So I would say that's been one of my favorite things. I enjoy
the return of the date night.
The return of the date night, yes. I've gotten a lot of projects done around my house, so that's been good too.
Yeah, it's looking really good, especially your backyard. Y'all can't see it, but back there,
my backyard looks horrible.
Hey, it looks better than it.
I have this thing. I'll show you at a later date, and I call it my matio. And the reason I call it my matio is because it's a large amount of black. Like a friend of mine works for like a linens delivery company, and it's like the mats that you see in stores. And he gave me a bunch of them, and I have laid them all out to make a non-muddy way to get from my house to my car. Eventually, I'm going to put in a brick walkway. But for now, it's my matio.
The matio is what's up.
It's pretty ghetto.
We were over here the other night. We all were hanging out on the matio as you were grilling. I mean, so as long as it's fostering
it's
like
functional.
Community, yeah, it's working.
Functional.
It's working
so
for sure.
Cool. Well, as any,
this is my favorite part.
So we decided to have a section of the show, and we're calling it the ASMR moment of the show. So for our ASMR moment for today, it's what a pink pineapple sounds like. So
it's paper mache, right?
This is a paper mache pineapple. The reason it's pink is because it was created by my wife for a baby shower. So I don't just decorate with pink pineapples. It's not really.
They're all over the house. Don't believe them.
Really my style. But yeah, so should we go ahead and do this?
Yeah, it's all you, man.
So you gotta be real quiet.
All right.
And that was your ASMR moment for the day.
Wow, that was incredible. I really just feel rejuvenated, refreshed, and
I would hope so.
part of our vision of Red Letter Society is to just make sure that we're encouraging churches all over. And I think that accomplished that vision.
I think that was probably the most encouraging part of the day.
Yeah, it really was. That was fantastic.
So as we have talked about before, we're Red Letter Society. My name is Tyler. This is Jordan. We both are worship leaders in the local church. I work for a church called Village Church. It's out in the Midlothian area, which is outside of Richmond, Virginia. Mm-hmm. And Jordan, where do you work?
I work at the Heights Baptist Church. It's south of the Richmond area. And so
I've actually both in the south side.
Yeah. So we both just south of Richmond, RVA. It's great. And yeah, I've been actually at the church. You've been at your church for a while now too.
About 2.5 years now.
Yeah. I've been at the Heights for a little over 4 years now. So we've been kind of rolling, man.
Is it crazy to think that you've been at a church longer than you were in college now?
Yeah, it's a little weird.
If you don't know, we're both still pretty young. We're in our 20s. And
we met in college too.
We met in college. And so we're, at least for me, I'm at that stage where I'm like blown away that college was like 6 years ago, which for some people seems like a short period of time. Right. But I'm like, oh, I've done things longer than the amount of time I spent in college.
Yeah. Kyle and I, Kyle's a part of our team as well. We met at freshman orientation at school. And we realized that was 9 years ago or so.
That's crazy.
I mean, yeah, that would have been 2011 when we met. And I mean, we're just getting old really fast. I mean, advancing.
I don't know if I'll say we're getting old. I kind of speak against the we're getting old. But yeah, so I wanted to talk a little bit to Jordan about why. So Jordan started Red Letter, 4 or 5 years ago?
Yeah, I was thinking about it. You asked me before. I think we said 4. I think we said 5. I think it's 5 years.
You started it like a year before I came here to Richmond.
Yeah, and it would have been about a year after I got married. And so I just had my 6th wedding anniversary last week, actually. So that would be, about 5 years.
Well, happy anniversary.
Thanks, man.
Did you guys do anything fun?
Yeah, we went out to a restaurant. Yeah, the return of the date night. By the way, we went to Cheesecake Factory. This is totally back to our previous segment, but we went to Cheesecake Factory, and one of the greatest parts about I think the best part of 2020 is I can go to Cheesecake Factory and not have someone else sitting at my table.
I don't know if I've ever eaten inside a Cheesecake Factory.
It can get pretty crammed.
Like, I've had their cheesecake, but I don't think I've ever actually sat in one of their restaurants.
Their cheesecake is incredible. Anyways, so yeah, 5 years ago. We started
5 years ago, Jordan started Red Letter Society, and I just wanted to give him a moment to share the why. And just kind of why he wanted to start it, what inspired him to do what Red Letter is. So
yeah, again, this was about 5 years ago. So we had we all knew each other back in college, and back in college, I mean, I was always the one that was like, "Hey, let's start a band. We're gonna start a band."
Jordan always had a band of some nature. And the more I got to know him, the more I realized he just went from he had a band and it'd be a band for a little bit and then it'd fall apart and then he'd start another one and he'd start another one. And then he went to college and learned about worship music. And then he tried to start worship bands. And so it's just a progression of who he's become.
I think part of that is I love teamwork and I love songwriting. And so I think it's at the start, it was really about, hey, let's get a group of like-minded people together to do something, and since I loved music, I mean, I literally growing up, I didn't play sports, I played music. So at first I think it was that. When Red Letter started though, it was different because I was actually playing with some of my really good friends at my local church. So I was a worship leader at a church. We both actually ended up serving at that church. But I was there, and I had people that were in my high school band playing with me. So we were having a blast, and it was awesome. And we started writing music for the church. And I remember we wrote a song. It's actually on our live project that we released, but Holy Spirit, we wrote that for that church, and we were playing it, And we didn't like tell people like, hey, we wrote this song. We just started doing it.
Mhm.
And it was kind of a different vibe because we weren't doing it to be like, we're in a band now. It was just, hey, we want to serve the church. And I remember playing that song and something special happening because it was a unique thing that was from the church for the church. And people latched onto that song and it was something special. And so that kind of started getting my gears turning about just keeping that songwriting, thing going. And I didn't really know what I had at that moment. It was just like, this was something special. Let's keep moving. And then what happened was Kyle Gibson gave me a call, and his wife, Alexandra, they called me and they said, hey, we're actually looking at moving into the area. And they got a job at a church. And so they moved into the area, and now there was these people that were from college that I had just done life with. And Alexandra and I were on a team in school together. Kyle and I had played off and on at different churches and stuff like that. And I was like, well, God's putting these people that could have literally moved anywhere across the world into the same place. And so now we had 4 people. You had me, David Bedford, and the Gibsons that literally could have been anywhere.
It's funny too, from a band perspective, those 4 people all played very different instruments.
Yeah.
And filled each role that you needed.
Yeah. And so it was like, well, we have a team here. And what we were doing at first was we were meeting up on Tuesday nights, and literally all we were doing on Tuesday nights was just, we were playing like a game and eating dinner. Mm-hmm. And we were just like, we're going to be friends because we're in this area. Let's take advantage of it. And all of us were serving at churches and different things like that. So we did that. And then we started playing music together while we were there, just because we needed an outlet to kind of be creative. And I showed them the song Holy Spirit. And when we put that song together as a band, I remember, and I'm going to try not to be too weird or, like the weird God story about it or anything like that. But I remember we played Holy Spirit together, and I said, that is the way that song is supposed to be. Like, there's something special about it. Alexander played this great piano hook that now is the hook of the song, and the energy felt right. And we all kind of stopped and was like, there's something special here. Mm-hmm. And so we kind of just continued to move forward with that. We actually had the band, like, we didn't have a name for a while, but we kept working on stuff, And
do you have any examples of what those?
I don't even remember.
I actually don't think I've ever heard any of the original ideas.
I remember we were trying to do a bunch of different stuff. We thought about, I think we were looking at a bunch of different like ideas of like collective, because you had like bands like Ren Collective or something like that. And we really had this vision for, hey, this is a team from multiple churches that are serving the global church. I don't really have any exact examples because they were just not good. They were not good. It's a good thing we didn't use them. But what ended up happening after that was actually you moved into town. And I think that's when Red Letter really just started kicking off, because now we had 5 people that could have been anywhere in the world. And they ended up in the same community in the 804 area and serving different churches. We were all at different churches at this time. And it was like, well, if me writing a song for my home church can be powerful and effective, what if we came from that experience of us being worship leaders and worship pastors at different churches, and with that heart for pastoring people, write songs that lead people to a better relationship with God, and we have that experience and we bring it all together, how much of an impact can we then have?
For sure.
Psalm 40 it's kind of become my anthem for Red Letter Society, is that, David's talking and he's just really been through the ringer. And he says that God has taken him and drug him out of the miry clay, put his feet on a solid rock. And so because of that, he sang a new song to the Lord. And when people heard it, they feared God. And that idea that when we write music about our experience with God, maybe about our testimony, about the way that God has moved or done something in our lives, when people hear that testimony, that song, it can change their lives. Like that's biblical. That's not just like, ooh, look, a song can change someone's life. That's what the Bible says about it. And so really what it was I saw that God was doing something special, and we all saw it by moving us into the same area. And we're like, we can't let this moment go to waste. We have to take advantage of it. God is doing something, and we're just going to join what God is doing.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So on a different question, you came in a little later. What was it about Red Letter Society that you're like, hey, I can be a part of this and I can be excited about it? Because people don't know this, but you are basically, when we talk about songwriters, like you come up with like 80 to 90% of the ideas, and you really push a lot of forward on it, a lot of the creative stuff that people don't even know that you're touching. You're actively a part of this team. So what was it that got you to say, hey, I want to be excited and passionate and do stuff with Red Letter Society?
I think for me, initially it was just the raw element of, it was a group of friends that played music together.
Oh yeah.
And so like I moved from Kansas City, Missouri. When I moved here, I had just proposed to my now wife, like I think 3 weeks prior. So I proposed, and then I moved here. Yeah. And so like Jordan,
what an exciting time.
Jordan talked about how we both worked at this same church. The funny thing about that, when he pitched the job to me, he was going to be working there too. So I was like, sweet, I got to move to Virginia, work with my friend. And he's like, hey, I'm actually going to go work at a different church, but you should still come.
Yeah,
do I was like, okay. So I came out here, and then I wasn't getting married for like 5 more months. And so it was a really, for anyone who's ever like moved somewhere new, making friends and just having community is obviously a hard thing. And so it was kind of a built-in community to be able to hang out and play music with you guys. And so me and Jordan were good friends in college. Kyle was actually my roommate for about 1.5 years in college.
I was an unofficial roommate.
Jordan he slept on my floor, and one night I almost burned his head off from the fireplace, but that's for another episode.
Yeah.
And
to be continued.
To be continued. But yeah, I think there was an element of hanging out with friends that was a very real pull. And kind of aside from like a spiritual thing, it was just like, there was an element of like, I just want to be able to hang out with some friends. Yeah. And then I think I saw one thing. Jordan has always been passionate. You've always been passionate about stuff. And I think there's a very real element that sometimes you can take an idea that maybe is common, and it's not like it's something new that's never been done before, but you know that someone's passionate about it. And it's like, well, I know that Jordan is passionate enough about this that it's going to succeed. So therefore, like, I'm game to get on board with it. Yeah. And I think there was an element of that was like, I could see that Jordan loved doing this, and that you loved doing this, and that, and so that like gave me the willingness to want to pour into.
There's a lot of trust, and this is another episode too, because Tyler and I write a lot of songs together, and like there's a lot of trust when it comes to like, hey, I'm going to creatively invest in something. Like, and when I put my creative, work, or some of the songs that we write are so incredibly personal. Like there's 2 songs I can think of, and they're not even on our next album that we wrote together.
Next album.
And then one's on the next album. But lots of, but I think of 100 Times, and I think of Psalm 23. And both of those, I realized that 100 Times was written almost 2 years ago. It was May 2019.
Really?
Yes. Wow. I just realized that the other day. And so I think of those 2 songs specifically, where when we came to write a song, we were really coming from like a broken place. And I think both of us were sharing something that was really on our hearts and like really pressing us. And we were sharing something that we were dealing with God. And we decided that, hey, we're not going to deal with this alone. We're going to deal with this together. And then we're going to write a song about it to worship God through it. And then what's so cool is, again, Psalm 40 says, if we share that with other people, they can be encouraged as well. But that takes a lot of trust.
Yeah.
You know,
Like, I feel like it's easy to write a song collectively. It's hard
Yeah.
to write a song where you come to it with an idea that you know is going to make the person you're sharing the idea with go, hey, like, why did you come up with that?
Yeah.
Like, why are you sharing this with me?
But at the same time, like, that's such a you know, as creatives, that's a different element to accountability and walking. But that really became now where I think Red Letter is different than what we first started with. Is so much of it is very personal. We're gonna get better at our walk with the Lord
Mhm.
because we're doing this together, and God is speaking to us, and all we want to be able to do now is just share what God is speaking.
Mhm.
And the fact that God speaks to us is just a whole nother thing. But man, it's incredible, and I think it does take a lot of trust to do that. And it is cool to get to that place where we can, I think, trust people and trust each other with a creative idea.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, where do you see, because we kind of talked a bit about why Red Letter started. Maybe let's take a second and talk about where it is now. Like, what is Red Letter Society right now, and then where do you want it to go? Where do you see it going in the future? So I know we were talking about songwriting. I think a big element of the songwriting the way it is now took place about a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
Maybe share that story. And I think a lot of that story really has been the catalyst for the things we're putting efforts and resources into right now, and is shaping the team as a whole.
Yeah, for sure. I think the first thing that happened was I got to a place where I really needed the Lord to speak to me, and I think I was kind of in a place that was I felt very broken in my spirit, and really, honestly, if I'm going to be very transparent, and you know this, but dealing with depression and things like that, and you know, I remember writing this song. Literally, all I wrote was "Broken and shattered, the darkness is all that I know," and then I like cried, and that was it. And we actually went to a conference together. Shortly after this, and we were talking about songwriting and the way to, you know, you're not a songwriter if it's not on your calendar, was kind of the thing that we learned.
Yes.
And we also learned at that, you know, it's the same. If you're not, you can go for a run and great, but if you don't have it on your calendar and scheduled to go run, you're not a runner.
It's like, the first time something else gets in the way, if it's not on your calendar, you're just going to throw it out.
Yeah. And so we committed to then start writing, and we just started. It was so cool because for the past 2 years we've been doing this, and every other week that we meet, the Lord gives us like songs and things like that. And so now we're really in the process of taking those songs and recording them, because creating the song is a challenging part, but producing it to get it out is another thing. And so as Red Letter, what's cool right now, what we self-produce everything, including this podcast, you know, but we produce everything on our own. We go to the studio, we record, and we do kind of stuff like that, and we put it out on Spotify and all that stuff. And so we take these songs that we feel like the Lord has really pressed on our heart, and we record it, we put it out. Our next project is called Into Light, which is really just a story. So much is just a story of how the Lord can take something and call you out of darkness into light, just like Peter writes. And, you know, it's like, you know, he has called us out of that darkness into his marvelous light so we can declare the excellencies of him. Like, and so right now, that's what kind of our next project's coming out. That should be coming out. We haven't decided when this podcast comes out, but it's either out now or it'll be out within a week of this podcast. You know, what's so cool is that's kind of where we're at now, where we're just producing stuff and putting it out. And we've sang some of the songs for our own churches. I know you like How Beautiful was a song that you sang last year at your church, and at my church we've sang Belong, and we sang Strongholds and things like that. And we want to get, that's kind of where we're at now. And what our goal is, since this is from the church, is we want to be able to be a resource for other churches. And we want it to be something where people can hear these songs and they hear the scripture, they hear the truth behind it, and when they hear that, they can say, this can help minister to my church. And so we're really about the local church. I mean, that's our heart. It's cool to do an event, but what we really want is, since we're all at churches serving over and over and over, week after week, we want to be able to be a tool for the other people that are doing that right now, to be able to take maybe some of our music and be able to lead their congregation in that. And so that's kind of our heart for where we want to be.
I have a dog, and Caspian, stop, lay down.
I think I said something he didn't like.
And he loves to guard things. So
well, we feel very safe.
He's real barky.
But yeah, I think that's the thing. We want to be something that's a tool for other churches, and we want to be a resource. We want to be able to encourage, and that's our goal for the future. And that takes some time and that takes some work, but I feel like that's what God's done so far in our own churches, and we want to be able to do that for others as well.
Awesome. Well, yeah, I think that's a good place to stop for this episode. Kind of talked a bit about who we are, why we exist, as Jordan said. Pretty much everything we do is for the purpose of building and furthering the local church.
Yeah, absolutely.
And generally, if, like he said, I come up with a million ideas, and if one of those ideas is not something that ultimately benefits the local church, then we just don't end up doing it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's good. Do you have anything else you'd like to say?
Back to that conference that you and I went to, and we'll talk more about that at another time. But one of the things that we learned is God's plan is for the local church. Mm-hmm. It's not for Red Letter Society. One day we will die. Mm-hmm. Like that's going to happen, or we'll cease to be a band. As a ministry, we are coming alongside the church, and the church is what God's plan is for. And so I think that's why our heart is so much in how do we equip local churches rather than just be promoting as Red Letter. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you for tuning in. Again, this is the Red Letter Podcast. If you could go ahead and subscribe to this podcast if you liked what you heard, and give us a 5-star review. I know on many of the podcasting sites, they will push that the more reviews that you get. So if you like what you hear, then tell your friends about it and give us a 5-star review. We're planning on putting one of these out hopefully once a month is the plan currently, and if things go well, then maybe more than that.
Yeah. And if you're on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe to our channel.
Subscribe on YouTube.
YouTube has all of our content. We basically put out video content of us doing our favorite worship songs, our original songs, podcasts, teaching videos, anything like that. We just put that on YouTube, so you can subscribe there as well if you're watching this.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for tuning in.
All right. See y'all.